Alrighty, here we go. It is starting. This gives me a chance to remember which one to cut off. One of these I have to actually turn the volume down on.
Is it recorded too? You got that set up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that now. I can turn the volume down on that. Wait, turn the volume. Oh, darn. Go away.
Oh, so say he in the waiting room. Oh, both of them are in the waiting room.
Alrighty. Okay. Folks are coming on in. Come on in, good people.
Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
1 second. I'm gonna turn the volume off here. Alrighty, and you guys can still hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, we are going live, guys. We are live and in Facebook. Give us a little bit. We're letting some of the other people come in. And you guys can start tagging people if you want to bring them this way. Hey, what's up, Rhonda? What's up, cuz? I see y'all. Thanks for waiting.
Hit the record button.
Will do. Here. And there's no feedback. This computer. All right. We are streaming and recording, guys. I think we are in business. Excellent. So someone else, I need one of you guys to monitor Facebook in case questions come through. I cannot see, I can't look at Facebook and be in recording mode. It won't let me minimize my screen. So make sure, oh, wait a minute. I might've figured this out. Hey, I think I got it. Hey. All right. We are going to get started here very shortly. Facebook world, just trying to see if any of the other members are coming in here, and we'll be jumping in just a few minutes. You probably are commuting on your way home, or you are probably just now getting home, relax, take your shoes off, get you some tea. Don't laugh here. Get you or some wine or whatever your favorite after work beverage is. And you all know this is your comfortable space. We come in here and get comfortable and relax and have a transparent conversation, a no judgment conversation. I will kick people off the call. I will absolutely stop you from being able to comment if you bring any negativity into around these pods, right, family?
Right.
Yes. Hey, Mimi, I see you guys. Come on in and get comfortable. And we are going to get started here. As soon as my team gives me the thumbs up, we can roll. Check and make sure that nobody is waiting. If you guys see anybody else, any members come in, let me know so I can open the screen and make sure I let them in. All right. So welcome Facebook world. This is your notorious, because we pop in and pop out, I tell you, Back to Love movement. And I am your gracious founder of the movement and host for this evening's Shop Talk. This is the first Shop Talk that we are having. And I'll tell you a little bit about the purpose of Shop Talk after my esteemed colleagues introduce themselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, whoever wants to jump in first, say hi to the people. All right, so call out. I was gonna say, don't y'all gonna make me call out people.
Right.
Go ahead, Tiara.
all
Tiara is
good.
new to the group, so yes, they've seen these UGG mugs before. They've not seen your face, so
Oh,
just
goodness.
a joke. It's just a joke. So please, by all means, introduce yourself, please, Miss Tiara.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for welcoming me. And I'm glad that I'm here. My name is Tiara, or T. I'm a lot of things, but for the most part, just a content creator and mental health advocate all day, every day, and everything is energy. So that's about it.
Well, welcome. It feels good for me to have all this young blood around us, right, Tasha?
Right.
Yes, I just told your age a little bit. That's all right.
We look good though. We look good. Don't worry.
That's right.
So introduce yourself, Miss Natasha, and you ain't got to tell the people tons or whatever you'd like to share.
Well, I'm Natasha. Don's my cousin. No, I'm just kidding.
Real cousin, blood to the blood.
No, I'm Natasha, and I'm part of the collaborative, and I'm excited about Shop Talk because it's going to open up the door to have conversations that we believe are much needed in our community that don't occur. So I'm looking forward to the beginning of something impactful.
Thank you. And so you look concentrated on something, focused elsewhere. You with us, brother?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just getting aligned. My name is Soul. I'm an artist, writer, poet, extravaganza. I ain't got much to say. I'm just here for the conversation. I'm here to input on the conversation. I'm ready.
Oh, you don't have much to say because you're the only
You better listen,
male
'cause you
right
don't
here.
male representing until we get some other
Right.
guys to come in alive. And
What-
Soul
what-
always sacrifices himself as such. I actually think he might be the only dude for my book. He always puts himself in the hot seat for the ladies. So we thank you very much, Soul, for joining us this evening. Today, in terms of Shop Talk, we are having relationship conversation, but we are having a self-relationship conversation. So when Back to Love started, there was some discussion to talk about, and of course a lot of it is political and it's social activism and those kinds of things, and we started bringing up love topics, and I was not a fan because it is a touchy topic for us in our community, not by our own making, but definitely a touchy topic, and I did not want to bring in a type of energy that sometimes this whole male-female interaction relationship or romantic, I'm just gonna say romantic, whatever your preference is, sometimes that can cause a lot of division. And so it was sort of going against the grain for me if we were talking about relationships. And Natasha's like, how we gonna call it Back to Love when we ain't talking about love?
That's-
Well, there it is, damn it. So here we are. So what we decided to do was to create this platform called Shop Talk, right? Because in the barbershops and the salons, we have these conversations with birds of a feather, right? And they're much easier to have in light company. And so we decided to call this Shop Talk, and this would be the relationship platform. So anytime that we introduce Shop Talk, we'll be talking about matters of love. Today, the topic is self-love, and we decided for this to be the inaugural Shop Talk, we have to talk about self-love, right? So I'll be your moderator for this evening, and I wanted to start by making a point about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Are you all familiar with it? Facebook watchers and my esteemed colleagues.
No.
So Maslow's hierarchy of needs listed the types of needs that we have in our lives to be healthy and happy and at peace and content with ourselves. And it's a 5-tier pyramid. It looks pyramid. Okay. So number 5 is like psychological needs. So number 5, it goes 5 is at the base, 1 is at the top. So we're talking least important to most important in terms of human happiness, and psychological needs is the least of the most important. And that's stuff like air, food, water, clothes. So, basically you don't need those things to be happy. You need them to breathe, and that makes us happy, right? I mean, you need them to live, and that makes us happy, but you don't need them in terms of any self-realization. Safety needs is number 4, and that includes things like employment, resources, possessions, material possessions. Number 3 on Maslow's hierarchy needs is love and belonging. So that's where love falls into our categories a lot of times. When we think about love externally. And according to Maslow, it's the 3rd most important need for a human to be happy. So friendship, romance, family, it actually is number 3. And oftentimes we place it at number 1, which I think deters us from getting to number 1, right? Because we're always externally looking for love. Number 2 is a respect, feeling accomplished, the need for freedom, for recognition, acknowledgement, basically. And then, of course, number 1 is self-actualization. And that is to reach your full potential, right? Yes.
So one of the things we learn about Maslow's, though, is as you go up the hierarchy, you have to accomplish one to get to the next. So you have to accomplish a psychological need in order to get to the next level. You will not be able to achieve that next level without,
your basic
accomplishing
needs, right? Yeah. And so self-actualization obviously is the hardest to get to. Not impossible, but the hardest to get to. So I'll start the conversation with asking a question of my colleagues and of you guys in Facebook world. If you want to put in the comments your thoughts, that would be helpful as well. Self-love. What is it?
Who's gonna look at the Facebook to make sure?
I got them both side by side so I can see when people are popping up into the if they're asking questions.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll be trying to monitor that back and forth.
So good.
I got it. That's why I'm looking at my screen. I got it.
Cool. All righty. So self-love. I think it's subjective. I don't think it's an objective definition. So subjectively, based on your own experiences and beliefs, what is self-love to you? Anybody can jump in.
Self-love it has so many levels. And it has to be something that's broken down. To me, it literally means knowing thyself, like getting to know who you are. That's a part of, the self-love. That's the first part, because if you really don't know who you are, what you like, it's hard to navigate like what you need, because if you your body will always tell you what you need. So being able to sustain that relationship with knowing who you are and what's good for you is a part of the self-love. Then there's the outer self-love. You know what I'm saying? So there's internal and then there's external self-love, but the most important is the inner. That's
And when you say external, you mean outward, you mean like outward beauty, what you see, your aesthetics, the aesthetics.
exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. I like that. Anybody else? What is self-love to you?
I think it's an ongoing, like to piggyback off of what T is saying, it's an ongoing discovery process. You know, like for me personally, I mean, I'm 41, I'll be 42, and I'm just embarking on a journey of self-love, you know, because it wasn't something that was really um placed a level of importance on when I was growing up. Nobody sat me down and discussed with me what the importance of self-love in my life. So it's like as you go through life and you're experiencing all these things, you determine like, yeah, I think I need to love myself more because had I loved myself more, maybe this wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have went through this, or you know. So I think it's like a ongoing a discovery process of who you are, and what does that mean in this earth, you know.
Y'all got me writing other questions down. So
Being able to look at yourself in the mirror when you fail miserably and still say, I love you. Be the role model that you want other people to look at you as, because too often we think we want people to treat us a certain kind of way. We don't even treat ourselves that way or even acknowledge the ways
Right.
that we say what we want, but we don't dress how we want. We don't think how we want. We don't act how we don't talk how we want. So regardless if you believe in God or the universe, from a physical person, if you act a certain way, they're gonna act that certain way because you drew the line.
yeah, we've got some comments in the comment section here that I want to read. Tashima it said that self-love is self-respect, self-care, and self-worth. Cora says, I can relate to that. And I believe it is something that you said, Tasha, and specifically, she said, I'm learning that it's okay to turn inward what I give so freely to others. And Mo Poetry, second that emotion, Miss Cora, she said, learning to give myself at the minimum what I give others, but what's needed more than I give others. So I'll tell you guys, to me, what self-love is. First of all, I think it is subjective. I think what you require to feel love for yourself is different for everybody. So it is an internal knowing. And I call it knowing the totality of yourself intimately. Not surfacely, but intimately, knowing the totality of yourself. And that requires being honest with yourself.
Vulnerable.
I think it requires being vulnerable. I think it requires no excuses or explanations for who and what you do. I think it is an acceptance of your flaws and your shortcomings, but as much as accepting of those things, accepting of your greatness. And it's not to be confused with possessions or connections, who you connect yourself to. My mother used to always say to me, I never feel unloved because I love me. And I could probably, most of you all would agree that at some point in our younger days, we that sort of that search for love came from the feeling that, you know, you needed somebody else to love you. I have to say I'm really grateful for the mother I had, because she always let me know that I'm never short on love as long as I love me. And that message really resonated for me throughout my time. So a couple of things that my esteemed colleagues, I like when I call y'all that. That's because I love y'all.
I like that.
Some of the things they brought up, it led me to these two questions. Does self-love change over time?
Yes.
Of course.
You change over time. So of course your likes and feelings are not going to be the same. You might not like the same things. It just doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything to you.
Yeah. What's important to you at 20, probably not going to be that important to you at 40.
That's
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah.
PS2
Exactly.
was important when I was 20.
What'd you say? So
PS2 was important when I was 20.
is there a
What was
line?
that, 2 years
Is there a
ago?
line to self-love, guys? Is there a line that you can cross over into something else? Conceit, narcissism.
I was
Is
just
there a
about to say
line?
Mhm.
arrogant.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
So,
how the difference? How do you know if somebody's just loving themselves or they are, narcissistic, idiots?
I think it's the fruit that it bears, the fruit that the self-love that you have for yourself, what
Mm.
it bears and how it impacts somebody else and influences.
Yes, you better go ahead and say that. Y'all hear that?
That's what I do.
Y'all hear
No.
that? It's so recorded. You'll get to hear it again. Yes, that hits some bells on the head right there, and definitely. And Maya says that love should change with time. If it doesn't, you haven't grown.
True.
Agreed. Agreed. So how is self-love developed? And Tasha, you kind of spoke on this. And I just did talking about my mom. Hey Marisha, thanks for coming in. How is love developed? Self-love developed. Where do we get it from?
Our first teachers,
Yeah.
our parents, or whoever our guardians are at that time.
Yeah.
So is it possible for them to destroy self-love?
yep.
I think it's it determines whether it's a healthy perception of what self-love is as opposed to an unhealthy perception. Um, uh, T is absolutely correct when she says our parents being our first examples, our first mirror of how we should treat and be treated. So, and that's even how they view themselves. Most times, especially when it comes down to mothers and daughters or father and son, we watch them to know how we should procreate in society or in life or in relationships.
So if self-love is developed it's learned. You see, in
Yeah.
other words, it's learned, it's what we see, it's what we experience, not necessarily experience personally, but observe, right? Hey Z, what's up? And Zinga, Marisha stepped in. Maya said it's home or lack of home. So again, I'll ask the question then, if the development of it is solely, right, based on the love we see or don't see as children, then how is someone who doesn't see that, how do they develop self-love? How do they get there?
Learn from experience or somebody introducing them to it.
Do you think it has to come from parents? Well, let's unpack that. How does a person who felt unloved as a child how do they get there?
Well, can we first clarify distinguishing whether or not, because some people identify love as an emotion and some people identify love as an action.
And they are both.
That is the line, that maybe we were speaking about. Like some people interpret how I feel, how will determine what love is. But some people say it's what is done towards us or what we do for ourselves. Like T was saying, as far as loving ourselves externally, health wise, taking care of yourself, keeping yourself up, making yourself look good, as well as having a mental, emotional state of being. So I think clarifying what is love for you, because if we don't understand what love is to us, then, we won't know how to love ourselves appropriately. Which
you know what? It's interesting. A lot of times when I have that conversation with people, the difference between feeling and acting on love, they are two different things, right? The feeling of love I think is what's unconditional, right? Mm-hmm. And some of us, so I think that unconditional feeling of love, I think that's where it's developed from, right? Are we feeling that that from the people who are supposed to love us, right? Before we have any concept of what it looks like. Are we feeling loved in the space that we are in? Some people, some people have the type of parents who love them, they know it, they take care of them, they do everything they need to, but they aren't affectionate people, right? So that's your act. Some people see acts of love as affection. Some people see it as service. I think if you don't have a parent who's touchy-feely, in their mind, that's because love is making sure you have shelter and food, and that's love for them. And so I guess when I talk about development of love, I think the feeling of love or having some concept that it exists does start at home. But I think the development of self-love it happens as we live.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think we're familiar with, it's like being familiar with God because you went to church, but your level of spirituality isn't developed until you have some life experiences, right? Hopefully they're on the good end. So, love don't get bitter. Don't taste good when it's bitter. So cool. So any thoughts, anything you'd like to add?
Well, to piggyback off of what Natasha said, I do agree. And I will add that I think when someone is developing self-love, we also have to be conscious about who that person is. And that's it starts with honest dialogue, not only with themselves, but the environment that they are. Usually people know if they feel good or not, what doesn't work and what does not. So that's the first step, is just being honest. What is it you do like? What is it you don't like? And how does it make you feel and how does it affect you? So once you understand that, you have a better way of looking for things and actions that are going to reinforce that. And sometimes the only way that can happen is if they're exposed to the other side of what they've been exposed to previously. So if a person needs love in the form of communication or affirmations and they don't get that at home, they'll probably be thinking that they don't love them because they don't have to acknowledge that this person just doesn't know how to do that. That's not how they love. But the minute they're shown that other side, they can kind of see, oh, this is what makes me feel good. This makes me feel loved. So it's an honest dialogue, not only with the people around you and with yourself. And we also have to understand that some people just know only how to love, like you said, acts of service, putting a roof over their heads. Doesn't mean that they don't love you. It's just their way of loving is different from you. And so that communication has to be made to where y'all can make, for lack of a better word, a compromise. But self-love is loving, like you said, loving yourself when love yourself enough so that you're never unloved, because it always has to start with you, because you're the only one in your head.
Yeah. Maya makes a good point. She said she saw love as a teaching experience a lot. And if she's still on or watching, I would really like for her to explain that a little bit more, because we're going to unpack that one right there, because that's a whole mouthful. Love as a teaching experience, I'm wondering, well, that kind of takes us into the relationship conversation. And but before we get to how our love or lack of self-love affects our relationship, I'm curious how, for someone who's on that journey now, right? They are trying to figure out how to get to the place where they are content with who they are, that they are satisfied with who they are. What are some ways you all think people can develop self-love? How does, and this takes some internal work, right? Can we first agree that it's internal?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So give the people a word. How do you think somebody can achieve? It can be personal experience. How do you achieve it? Do you love yourself? Let's answer that question first. Hold up. Back all the way up. Back up. Let's go back. Do you love yourself, Tiara?
I do love myself.
Do you love yourself, Soul?
I'm working on it.
You working on it? Honest answer. I love it.
Yeah.
Natasha, do you
Yes,
love yourself?
I am learning, and just to get into the topic, I think for me personally, experiencing what wasn't love taught me what love was,
Yes.
because it evoked a feeling that had me questioning, like, this can't be love because this don't feel right. You know, if from a traditional sense spiritually, if we're taught that love is patient and love is kind and love is long suffering and love is endearing and all these wonderful attributes, and we don't receive that, then you have to kind of check the inventory and be like, huh, this ain't adding up. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me personally, it was being in not so loving situations that kind of taught me what love should be and what I wanted for myself.
Hmm. Yeah. And this is a conversation, guys. I'm not gonna call on people. Jump in when you feel like you have something to say. People in Facebook world, feel free to put your comments in. You know, how did you achieve? Or what part of the journey are you on? What have you done to sort of move the needle forward, even if you haven't, you don't feel like you've, gotten all the way there. I'll be honest with you guys. I think age plays a lot into this. I'll be 47 years old in 8 days.
Show them how to do it, cuz. Show them
You
how
better
to
go
do it.
on. You see them? Y'all
Show
see
'em
them
how to
guns right there. No.
do it.
But all jokes aside, I can say probably around 40-ish, early 40s, I finally knew that I truly, truly love myself. We sometimes we talk about, love is patient, is kind. We apply that to everything else. But are we patient with ourselves?
Mm.
Do we love ourselves without condition? Because I personally do not feel like romantic love or familial love or platonic with your friends, I don't think that's unconditional. I think love for self is unconditional, or it should be. People use the word unconditional without looking at the root. So the root of the word is condition, right? And it's not what condition you're in, it's what condition standards do you put on yourself? What factors do you put in place, right? That's what the condition is. So that's why I say that romantic love is not unconditional. You should require something for your love. You should require conditions to act, to physically, emotionally act on giving somebody love. For yourself, there should be no condition.
That's good.
You don't need anything. You don't need anything to love yourself. You don't need anything. There's no condition or standard or restriction you should put on yourself to love yourself. And I think that's where it starts. Love yourself unconditionally. And my cousin just said the same thing, affirmations. It's easy to beat yourself up. It's hard to give yourself grace and realize that your flaws is what makes you human. We have to learn to love ourselves unconditionally. Agreed.
That's where I'm at.
Agreed. Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm finally getting to that where it's like accepting the shadow sides of me, the ugly side,
Mm-hmm.
accepting all of that and putting in the effort to do something about it. You know what I mean? Not just, this me is just me, and that's just gonna be me forever. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to growth, and the more you love yourself, the more you learn how to love other people. So like if the way that you treat yourself is not in a healthy way, the way that you communicate and love other people might not be in a healthy way either.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at right now, just loving the ugly parts. And it's to where I can look at anybody and see myself in them, like, the same presence, in the same unconditional light, you know what I'm saying, that I see in myself, like namaste, the light in you is in me, different things like that. So that's where I'm at right now, like accepting all of that. And it's easier for me to accept other people as they are, you know.
Yeah. I'll tell y'all a exercise. Only do this at home. Do not go to somebody else's house and do this. Please never, ever, ever, ever do that. Get you a full-length mirror so you can see all of yourself. Take off all your clothes and stand in the mirror and have an honest conversation. If you start from the outside, because this is what makes us feel it, right? Mm-hmm. It's, you know, even if somebody's not treating us well, we think, oh, it must be the way I look, or it must, right? So get that shit together first. All your dimples, find them all. Find that one little calic that won't ever lay down in your hair. Find it all. And every flaw, I love you. I love you. It sounds silly, but do it until you believe it.
That's good.
It is. I feel it already. Like,
you by yourself? I can't think of myself. I can't tell the whole wide world. You know what I'm saying? Do it for you, honey. That's intimate. That is stripping yourself to its absolute core. Finding every ugly part. And once you do it for the outside, then you can emotionally, internally do it for the inside.
So are we saying that we are identifying the things that maybe outward influences caused us to feel unlovable? So like if we're talking about the outward man and societal standards, I just really looking introspectively, which is a projection outwardly. So when you don't feel good about yourself, like for instance, you'll see people with eating disorders, whether it's overeating or anorexia, and it's not just habitual, but it's psychological. It's a psychological thing that they're feeling about. It's a self-hatred thing. So they're feeding that self-hate, or they're starving that self-hate. You know what I mean? So we're identifying those things and then kind of like turning a negative into a positive, because I don't like to say flaws, because I believe everything that we encompass is what makes us unique. So what, you know, might not be for somebody is being okay. Like we were talking, and what came to mind was self-love is meaning being unbothered. You know, I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but don't be unbothered by that. You know, don't beat yourself up or try to be accepted by everybody. Just as long as you can accept yourself, know that you're beautiful for your own unique self. That's all that matters. Be unbothered. Like, you know, okay, I might not be for you, but I'm from somebody. I'm for myself. Like Soul was saying, being able to look at yourself and love what you see, not only outwardly, but inwardly as well.
So that sounds like confidence. So confidence is a part of self-love.
So it's interesting, right? Because you guys, so Tasha just literally went through the last 3 layers of the hierarchy, right? And you were talking about external, so building esteem, right? Esteem is right under actualization. So that for me, that exercise I was talking about stripping down, is building the esteem. That's why I said building the outside first really does help with the internal, right? Because you can't achieve the actualization, which is number 1, until you achieve the esteem, the confidence, you know? So yeah, with that, I'm like, that's what I'm saying, getting to love all of this, your outer shell, because the inner shell is work. The inner shell is some work, some talking to people, and you know, I struggle with people who can't do the work. And I know that's not right, but we'll Tierra.
Yeah, so the inner part, I feel more comfortable working on. Like, that's one of my strong suits. I love the inner work. My thing is like, you know, I can confidently say, I love myself. but like outwardly, like going into public places and stuff like that, like I feel great when I'm at home. But like social anxiety, so like there is another line with mental health and self-love and what that really means. That's a whole nother layer, because it's like, you know, with the outwardly things and just being the social anxiety and being extra like self-conscious about everything, and just taking a deep breath, like it's okay. So is it like a mental thing, or is the confidence there? It's just you having a like a little, you need a confidence booster, or you know what I mean, like the levels
Is
and
it
layers.
possible to find the root of that? And I asked that
Very
question,
possible.
right, because we, you know, the external, you're talking about external, but what it sounds like to me is something that is affecting the internal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it sounds psychological to me. Is it about, you know, social contact is one thing, because I don't mind being by myself either, but just in terms of awkwardness, in terms of social. So I wonder if you can find the place where it happened, you know, where you started to feel uncomfortable on the outside, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
just
It,
for anybody, I'm not saying you specifically here.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
saying
listening. I'm
in
taking this
general.
in. Asking for a
Yeah.
friend.
Just say like in general, I wonder if you can find, I think finding the spot, right? So I think it requires defining yourself, you know. Yes. So you ain't gotta raise your hand, baby. Just jump in.
you know, just I don't like interrupting when there's some good information being spilled, so that's why I just
He being
yeah.
respectful.
I appreciate it. I
That baby
appreciate
being
In
respectful.
my
it.
in my experience, and I do get very anxious being around people when I'm by myself out and about. I'm cool, but when there's more people, I get nervous, and nobody will notice, but I'm just very surveying the area. My mind won't stop ticking. And going back to what you said about the root, I think that's intertwine of external and internal. And I believe it starts with internal, because if you think about when we're just babies, as just children, like how they say racism isn't inherited, it's taught. That's literally everything. Everything that we see, that we uh, go through, it tweaks what's going on inside our mind. Because I'll say from in my own experience, my journey of self love, I learned that a lot of concepts I say to myself now, they weren't even my thought patterns. They weren't even my words. They were from a large group of people, both verbally and physically attacking me. And at a very young age, I've realized I was afraid of what I saw. I didn't like what I saw. So really what I wanted to do was get out of my skin, leave that behind and be somebody else. While at the same time, without even thinking about what a thought was, you're not even thinking when you're a child, you're just in the moments. You're not thinking about what's going on in the background. You build up this repertoire of bad debt in your head. So when I'm in places where I'm feeling very anxious, I ask, what is the thoughts that's going through my head that's making me feel anxious? Oh, she's looking at me weird. That's because even if she's not looking at me the way that she may be looking at me, that I'm thinking of, in my mind, it's a threat, because I'm used to seeing people looking at me and I immediately just want to look away. So it's an external thing affecting your mind because you're experiencing what the world has been given to you. And that goes to your environment, what society expectations of you. So begin to ask, when you're in those moments where it feels like everybody is a threat, what is the thoughts that inspire them to be a threat when really nobody's even really looking at you the way you think you're being looked at?
You think affirmations in those moments would be self affirmations? And I'm asking that question, and I'm moderating, so I'm listening. Y'all know I host and everything, so I'm listening to what people are saying for feedback. Um, it's interesting because when you speak about it, you speak in a lot of negative terms. You use more don'ts than do's, more can'ts than cans. You understand what I'm saying? And those are called affirmative words. Those are non-affirmative words, right? And so I wonder if you, one of the things you said specifically was, it was something about, you said don't, and I can't remember exactly. But in that moment, I wondered if you could say to yourself, well, you said she's not looking at me. It's just in a moment, if you could say to yourself, she is looking at me because I'm to be looked at. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And have words of affirmation. If you're familiar with yourself and you know there are moments and instances, then you could just have things that you've already created. You know, write your 10 affirmations and say those in place of what you would normally have said in the negative, said in the affirmative.
And that's where that inner work comes
It's
from.
about energy all the
Yeah,
time, right?
that's that inner work.
That's
The actualization. Actualization is taking thought and making it word. That's actualizing. So just some thoughts. That's all.
I also think it's important for us to have tangible examples of self-love, because we are such a visual people. So it's important to see what that looks like. So even when it comes, since we're on the subject of outwardly loving ourselves, I have a godchild, and I remember when she was 3 and I was bathing her and I was washing her hair, and I was like, don't you know you are just so beautiful? And her face like turned. And I was like, baby, what's wrong? And she was like, she told me she didn't like how she looked because she didn't look like any of the other girls that she played with or went to school with, because she went to a predominantly white school, and it was predominantly white girls and Latin American children. So she was the minority. So she had no true measure of what she should be feeling for herself, if you know what I'm saying. So one of the things that I do is, like you said, Don, is repetitiously speak affirmations on her. You are beautiful, from your head to your toes, the kink of your hair, the little your little nose. You are just beautiful. And when you plant those seeds, it's just like, and we spoke separately outside of the podcast about this, about historically how it affected our self-image. Psychologically, if you see an image over and over and over again, like back then, some of the animation of how they would draw us, how they made us think we looked. If you see that over and over and over again, if you hear something over and over and over again, you begin to believe it. It's just like Soul saying, they're looking at me weird. Well, why would you think they're looking at you weird if somebody didn't tell you, oh, you weird? You know what I'm saying? Or if somebody didn't tell, or if you thought you were unattractive, it was because somebody told you you were unattractive. Because we don't know concept of beauty until it's spoken to us, you know. And so, and we have to understand that beauty comes, it's a very vast thing. It's not a one size fit all. It's not you're beautiful. It's in the eye of the beholder, and it has to start here. Like you were saying, it has to start with you first. And like I said, it goes back to being unbothered. You got to really be unbothered by people's opinions. You got to be like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's how you feel? Okay, you know what I'm saying? But I love me, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I know I'm cute.
Bring up a good point. Nobody should be able to call you something out of your name and it angers you, right? I get the disrespect. But if I was walking down the street and I heard the word bitch, I wouldn't turn around. She certainly couldn't be.
Because you respond to what you believe,
yes,
right?
So he certainly couldn't, right? So it's like sometimes if people think they're offending me, first I have to believe what you're saying about me. First I have to believe it to be offended. Then you have to matter. And since neither of those two things, you know, I mean, that sounds, when I hear unbothered, that's what I think.
Yeah. So my goal in life is to break the victimization of societal pressure, you know, especially with our young people. because sometimes I'll be like, I might not understand what they doing, but let them be, because that's an expression of who they are. It might not be with something I would do, but what right do I have to say you weird? No, you're eclectic in your own right. You feel what you feel. If you want to put on a skirt, do. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do you be but we need to mind our own business sometimes, you know what I mean? And really, like, because I think people who speak negatively about somebody else is a reflection of really truly how you feel about yourself.
That's real.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
It's a
mean?
reflection of your lack of self-love. Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
it's
Because guess what? If you really
transferred.
loved yourself, you
Yeah.
wouldn't even what
If you
what
really love
somebody else
yourself, you
loves do.
build. You don't tear down. People who love themselves, they build. That's why I said the fruit of your love for yourself. It builds. It does not tear down. You know, it
Yeah.
does not
Yeah.
criticize. It does not. Now, there's some things that, like, for instance, I remember, and this is a little tangent, but you know, we grew up in the church. The church has a certain image of how you're supposed to look, right? So they teach you to be meek and docile. But if you're a cute young lady or a handsome young man, just because you in the church don't mean you can't be stylish, you know, and be proud of what you look like. So I had friends that was like, girl, you cute, you got a little shape, put these clothes on. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that they were telling me it was something wrong with me. They were just saying, you got more to show of yourself. Be proud of what, don't try to hide the beauty that you possess. Like, sis, you beautiful. We like to be alone because that's our safe place. That's the environment we can control. So we are most comfortable alone because we're safe. We feel safe, you know, but we got to live in this world. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, be unbothered. Like, if somebody don't like you, so what? You know what I mean? If they don't like how you look, so what? Like how you look. I had to get to that place because it was killing me. You know what I mean? It was killing me. It was making me miserable, you know, trying to measure up to somebody's expectation. No, you got to live. I am on a journey of trying to live for myself, and that is difficult. That is not easy.
You know,
Go ahead.
it sure isn't.
And I posted this on my wall a few days ago, and I started getting some good responses on it. One of the posts was about being okay with uh, being by yourself. I think a lot of people, we slightly touched on this earlier, where we need to be in company, not so much out of to feel the love, but to compensate for the love that we're not giving ourselves in the
Absolutely.
meantime. And I think this pandemic has shown a lot of people who they really are that they've been running from.
For real. We ain't
And
got no choice. We ain't got
yeah,
no choice but to face us.
and one of the things I posted was I was having conversations with multiple people, and I waited to say it because they would have known I might have been talking about them. But they said that I can't do the single life. I always gotta be in a relationship. When one ends, goes on the next one. And I put me who can relate because I understand the mindset of that. It sounds more like someone who doesn't like to be by themselves, maybe even love themselves. If you love yourself, you're okay whether a mushroom is in the room because you're at peace with yourself and you're not warring with yourself. Is this person out to get me? Is this person out cheating on me? Is this person really who they say they are? You wouldn't have to have all this chatter in your head if you was at peace with yourself and know what you're doing is for not just for you, but just like I make this decision and I don't really have any quarrels about it, or I wouldn't be cussing myself out late at night and not getting any sleep. So we have to also be okay with sometimes just being by ourselves, however long that may be. And then when you're with other people, enjoy the love that they give you and the joy that you give back to themselves instead of it being you're trying to refuel the gas tank.
That's important to enjoy the love that you're getting, because sometimes we don't know how to receive love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, now we getting on over into the topic that we were saving for last, because it's going to be the heaviest of the heavy. But I will say this, I'll leave you guys with this affirmation. I was blessed. I had a lot of, I got a lot of wordsmiths around me. Ain't no doubt why I became a poet. But my grandmother used to say, and my sister can vouch for this, my best friend, because I've been saying it forever. You gotta be okay with yourself inside of a cardboard box with no fixings. I'm gonna leave that there. Y'all take it with y'all. Y'all need me to say it
I was
again?
going to say, can you say that again,
This
please?
is a mental meal. This is a
the
mental
back.
meal. So that means this. So this is a mental meal, right? So that means that you don't have to unpack it now. Take and nibble on little by little in your own. You have to learn to be okay with yourself in a cardboard box with no fixings. That means if you were by yourself in a cardboard box with no fixings, you got it. And y'all know what fixings are, right? That's old. That sounds like something my grandmama would say. Y'all know what fixings are?
The attitude.
The fixings are like stuff.
Oh, okay.
People and stuff and
Well, we know who's the baby in the room.
literally a cardboard box is basically what she's saying, and still be okay with yourself.
Speaking of best friends, Maya's going crazy in the comment sections. Come on now. Yes, say that. I can be somebody's coffee bar. But she said something interesting that I think is important to repeat. She said, having older grandparents and parents who are not big huggers and kissers, but workers. And I'll show better than I can tell you. My grands had 9 kids and showed affection by building a house, working multiple jobs, not really huggy, kissy people. My mother was like, hell nah, I want to kiss and hug my kids and show them that I love them, but teach them how to work at something you love to do. My dad used his penis and thought that was love, and it's not. I'm an emotional person, so I hug and kiss and affirm. And I think the reason why I definitely want to read that was that was not only conversation, but they were showing love 2-3 different kind of ways. They wasn't just how I show you love is how I work, or how I show you love is being hugging, kissing. I'm showing you multiple ways of how to love. So you find the one that is top tier for you, but you also know how to deal with other people that love different ways, because you could be in a relationship with somebody whose love language is acts of service and it don't communicate to you because your way of love is affirmations. So having that dialogue and be able to understand that people are their own unique cut, not flaws, just different. It's about do y'all mesh? Can y'all communicate? Which for me and my self-love and love in general, if you can't talk to me about something, what am I wasting my time for?
Yeah. You know, I think you brought up something that's so interesting, because we always take the conversation back full circle. Maya's comment made me think about what I said at the beginning of the podcast, right? Is that love is subjective. Self-love is subjective. So again, whether we've seen it or not seen it, that's an objective viewpoint. Objective is because we're observing it, right? So it is subjective. So that means defining what it is for you. And I think that no matter where we started, we can get there once we understand how to clear away the rubbish, right? But and you proved the point, so by saying, or Maya's comment actually started this, but you have kissy huggy people when they see that as love, and you have people who take care of you, and that's what they got for you, and they see that as love. So it's subjective. I think the beautiful part about a life like Maya's and mine, and I'm gonna say Natasha, I think you grew up pretty much the same way. You know, we had some really huggy, kissy family, and some family that was like, but we knew they
Right.
they loved us, right? And so I think that's why I say that self-love is such a subjective, personal. Sometimes you can't even have the conversation with anybody else about how to get there, because how you get there and what it is for you ain't what it ain't. We are not our neighbors in that regard. You know what I'm saying? We are actually going to have a whole podcast on love languages, so we're not getting it on today, but it does lead us right segue perfect into the last segment. Yes, Natasha, I don't want to
So
go.
before we get into the last segment, just to refresh. So when dealing with self-love, so we can stay on topic, identify what that means to you, what your needs are, what will make you feel good. And then two, one of the other most important things that I think we've talked about is self-affirmations, because I really think that's important. Because like Soul said, if you don't do it for yourself, you'll be looking outwardly for some type of compensation, and it's never going to be enough. You know, you're always going to look for something more, something greater, because you don't believe it, you know. So identifying what self-love is for you, what you need for yourself, and then affirming yourself. For a person who is beginning their journey to self-love, those are steps you can take initially in order to achieve it.
And I will say, I will add a step 3 because I think a step 3 would be good. We talked about this. Tasha brought it up first, and it was initially the 1 Corinthians chapter in the Bible that talks about what love is, right? And so it's not about Christianity in the Bible. That's not what we're talking about at all. Because the verse is excellent. It is a blueprint for what love looks like. So I will say number 3 is read that verse and learn to apply those things to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be kind with yourself. Don't bring up old stuff, old messed up things. Ooh, I'll be catching myself on the cuss words. I'm doing so much better.
Be yourself.
I might run my office at some point. I'm trying to straighten out my image.
Be yourself.
Just saying. So yeah, I mean, but read that chapter. It's 1 Corinthians. What? No. That's what I'm saying. Number 3 is read that and learn to apply it to yourself.
I think he has 4. I think he has 7.
He has 4.
Yeah.
Number 4.
What was that scripture for the non-church goers in the back? What was that?
That's what so it's 1 Corinthians, but I don't know the actual verse number. If anybody knows it, it's 1 Corinthians.
Isn't it also in Galatians? The fruits of the
it's a
Spirit?
Corinthians verse. Y'all go ahead and keep talking. I'm gonna look it up on my cell phone. We can jump into
Keynotes, kind and patient.
Yeah, you going into the last. You got the.
We're not done. That's fine. I just want to make sure, because we're talking about how it affects your relationships next. So let's make sure we hash out. I do want to list those 3 things again. That was excellent, Natasha. So thank you for bringing us back to that. So identify, affirm.
Identify.
I was just double checking. Identify, affirm. I like that. We don't use that again.
Yeah.
Identify, affirm, and then apply. And we're going to call that last one where you read the verse, apply. Yeah, I like that. We just came up with a training, girl. We need to talk offline. Identify.
So what you got?
5.
What you got?
Release.
Mm.
And I don't mean just
you got to take me in on that one.
Not just past stuff.
I felt that in my spirit. I ain't even gonna lie. I felt something come over me when you said release.
I released something at that moment. At that moment, I released.
Yeah. We don't. You know what?
That's all you have to say.
People hype people to do
really.
Really. They might. You never know. We might be able to take it to a women's prison. Mm-hmm. I be having these thoughts. Like, these are the types of trainings, quote unquote, that people do. We pay people. Okay, we'll talk about it later. I'm back.
Right.
I mean, y'all know I gotta lighten things up a little bit. No, I love that though. So identify, affirm, apply, release.
There it is.
Look at us coming up.
That's a bookmark too. That's a bookmark. That's merchandise. That's a t-shirt.
Oh my God.
That's a bookmark.
Some coffee mugs.
That's a hat.
It's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1. First
God is
Corinthians chapter
crazy.
13, verse 1.
But I'll say
Thank
just
you, Miss Cora.
I'll say real quick what I mean by release. You see this punching bag over here? When a lot of things is going on in our day-to-day lives, it's hard to make room for you if you're not used to making room for you. So that's part of myself right there, because as Natasha was talking about, being in the church is trained to be meek and passive and all this. I actually I've been doing this, but it was confirmed by an episode of Cobra Kai. They practice in defense, but when your enemy only knows attack, you must attack yourself. You can't defend yourself if you're not alive to defend yourself. So I get angry because I realized I was holding in a lot of anger that turned into depression, and it has no way out. It's just laid out. So you can't love yourself if you got all this backed up energy. So whatever it takes to release either the daily stuff, we ain't gonna get to the past stuff, but the daily stuff to get it off your head so you can make room for that self-love, figure that out. Mine's is a punching bag.
Mine is stretching.
I've been working this month.
So tangible versus emotional and spiritual release. It's like a duality. There's two parts.
And I imagine it could be all three, a combination of those, or whatever gets you there, I guess, or one.
I think all of them will work itself together. Once you start working on one, you start working on the second one, because it's just like if you exercise, you're releasing the emotional, that'll make room for the spiritual, and goes back into how you feel physically. So it's a circular thing.
So it's self-love. Oh, y'all think I'm playing. This is a good one. And we getting ready. No, I'm writing all the keywords down, circular. All of this is getting ready to make a lot of sense later. Hold up. Okay. So, last question that we have: how does self-love or the lack of self-love, either or both, affect your relationships? Not just your romantic relationships, but the relationships that sisters have with their sisters, like sister, not sister, family. I mean, I'm just saying a sister is family. So how does it affect those other relationships? This can be just your thoughts or
self-sabotage. When you know it, when you know you have a good thing, but you don't feel you deserve it, you'll unintentionally or intentionally mess it up because you're afraid of either being hurt or it's going to scare you once you're not familiar with something. Getting familiar with something that you're unfamiliar with. If you don't know how to love yourself, when somebody comes in to love you, it's a weird space. So that's just going, whether it's all in one or subtly over time, it's going to show its cracks and its creaks.
And what you said, what was the first word? I'm sorry, hold on.
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage.
Playing with y'all. Okay, go ahead, Tia.
That's actually I don't know. Sometimes I have to take things apart and dissect them in order to bring them back together. Like you were saying, so self-sabotage. Now, is that lack of self-love? So we can agree or disagree whether that is the case, and also like a mental thing. You know what I mean? Or psychological thing. Somebody's been hurt there in some kind of way. And that's actually one of the characteristics of borderline personality disorder. It is triggered from trauma. So there's still that hurt and pain that needs to be released. And so I try to dissect things. So it's a mental thing that's connected to the love thing that somewhere needs some healing, melding, you know what I'm saying, together to become the fullness of love. Is that the kind of thing that's going on there?
Yeah, you pretty much described all what we was talking about from the outside in and being self-sabotage, because the more I look up self-sabotage, the root of it is based on the idea of whatever it is that is being given to us that is a positive, we feel we don't deserve it. So say if someone who is raped at a very young age. They took something from them. They made them feel a certain way that they did not, that was not something they were supposed to feel. So when they go into other relationships, if all they've known to express that act of love is in that shape or form, when someone is showing them the opposite side, they're not computing that as love. Or they may know that it's love, but they don't feel that they deserve that because somebody else showed them this is what your worth is. So it's a physical going into psychological and then spiritual as well, where it becomes a pattern engraved in your mind.
Mm. I think one of the things that the lack of self-love, one of the challenging positions it puts us in is that I think people who lack self-love hard. And y'all like, what?
So
Okay,
what?
so this is
I
what
didn't
I
hear
mean.
that.
You kind of went in and
But I
out.
think people who lack some sense of self-love or self-actualization, I think they tend to love other people really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Almost over-actualizing it, like knowing that this person doesn't really love you back the same way and not really trying to figure out if the way you love them is healthy. But I think I really do. I think people who lack something internal, they deflect it or see it in places that it doesn't exist. You know, I would equate that to a young woman. And I'm only using women because it's just my experience. I ain't saying men don't go through this too. Who equate sex and love. And everybody, the moment she has sex, she love them hard, like down in her soul hard. You know, if you're 40 years old, you probably, or more, if you are 25 and older, you probably have had that experience.
It's probably a spiritual attachment too, though. Like it's more than a physical connection that you have. You know what I'm saying? So you're really stuck, and you forget about self-love. Like, what does that mean?
I think men do experience it too, and not just personally, but if y'all familiar with the poet Talam AC, I've been listening to his actual audio CDs on his Morally Bankrupt 2. He does one very early on where he kind of expresses it, where he basically details how pussy women was the only way to cope with everything that was going on in the world. The world treats them, in America, treats them like shit. The woman who loves him is the only thing that keeps him from going insane from all that was going on. So over time of just doing things, repetition, it becomes a behavior becomes a cultural accepted thing. A lot of these guys don't know what love is because their fathers, grandfathers, this is what they do. So that's their way of getting free. And really, love is free anyway. Anything that makes you feel good, in a sense, has love quality. You can be a loving person and still need work done. It doesn't necessarily mean, or if you're loving someone that has been devoid of love, does not know how to show how to love. It's just maybe confused, maybe conflicted. They still have the potential to love. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love you, but they don't know themselves enough to love you the right way. Or, yeah, to love you the right way because they don't know how to love themselves the right way. They may be speaking a whole love language that is not even their own language.
Or so to me, you talked about two different things. You're talking about broken people, right? People who are, they love sick, right? Those are, I would venture to say, and this is just the two things I heard, I would venture to say that I would question a man or a woman's love for themselves if they walk into a situation eyes wide open with somebody who is broken, who is incapable at that time. And I say that, y'all, from experience. I don't think that is so anyway. I lost myself for a minute. Let me roll back. Trying not to be too transparent on Facebook Live. We're gonna have to do this in our YouTube thing from now on. Stream live to YouTube. But so it sounds like but the other part you said was somebody who is incapable of love and doesn't know how to love. I don't know if those are the same two kind of things, right? Because they may not love necessarily what you consider love to be if it's subjective. But initially you started to me sound like you were talking about being in love with broken people. Like the young man you described was a young man who needed women to fulfill something that he was missing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a broken person. I don't know if that's a person it may start from his self-love, his lack of self-love. But I think if a woman gets involved with someone like that, or vice versa, brothers, if y'all get involved, pray for them, be their friend from a distance, affirm for them. When you see them every day, speak affirmation to them if they're not ready to speak it to themselves. But falling in love with them,
Bad business.
it's bad business, baby.
Bad business.
Because they mean to. That's the other part. That's the coming out on the other side. That's what work does. When you can sit back and have experienced those things and say to yourself, first of all, I knew he was, you know what I mean? I knew.
Mm-hmm.
My accountability says I'm loving me better. I knew that. I knew that shit when I thought I could.
Right.
What about me needed that?
You're killing me.
And to me, that's the other side. That's when you find yourself coming out. Every time you can sit down and self-reflect and we're talking about relationships, specifically how to have all the effects in the world. On the back end, be honest with yourself and accountable to yourself. You never gotta tell him. I didn't say don't tell him. That's not what I said. I didn't say he needs to know anything. Towards your own self-worth.
I also think a lack of self-worth affects your standards, what you will accept and what you won't accept. You know, when you don't have much self-love, you'll let people treat you any kind of way, and you'll trick your mind to be like that benefit of the doubt type of person, like, oh, well, you know, they just going through and this, that, and the third. They don't really need it. They just hurt. You know, it's just like you were saying, Don, you almost feel like you can save them. But it's like a recipe for disaster because it just don't ever turn out that way, you know.
Not even for family.
Yeah.
Not even in familial situations.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just romance. To me, I think I look at all relationships the same. That there is, it just, you're just not having sex with everybody. I mean, I'm not being funny. That's the only separation in romantic and family and friends. That's the only difference is.
Yeah.
So I have the same basic expectations from every relationship I'm in with whomever. And reciprocation matters for me.
That's growth though. That's a advanced stage, I think, of self-love. You got to get there.
Agree. You know? Oh, I agree. I totally agree. I don't think I've ever been happier with myself than I have been in the last 5 years of my life.
It shows.
I pray it for everybody every day. It is freedom. It's free. You talking about unbothered, Natasha?
That's because you set boundaries.
Did y'all see that?
Right. You set boundaries. Like you perfected that. That's what it sounds like. Like, and that's a part of self-love. That's where I'm at too. Like, you have to know I will not let you drain me. You know what I'm saying? I can only give you so much of my energy because if I give you too much, I'm draining myself. So everything is energy.
I'll tell you what, there's a downfall to all this self-love though. Now, look, there's a downfall, right? Because
Now,
once you are loving
let me
yourself,
guess.
first of all,
Let me
you want
guess.
it, you want it so bad. You want it so bad for other people that you start to spread yourself that way. So you're giving little pieces of yourself away, trying to save, not save people, but you want them to feel like you feel.
That's in
And
a
you
sense
hug,
saving
Maya,
somebody.
you hug and kiss a lot. And my friend Nzinga, if she's still watching, she said to me, I had some bad situations with some sisters on the poetry scene. It wasn't good, right? And she said to me, Dawn, you hug everybody. That's that self-love shit, because I feel so good. She said, you open yourself up to too many energies.
Mm.
You have to not hug everybody. You have to stand back for a minute and decide who deserves, because you opening yourself, you hugging somebody, you're wide, they chest to chest with you.
I believe that.
I'm funny about being in
So,
crowds.
That's
Like,
why,
man,
like,
all that self-love, it take you on the other side. It's a balance.
it's levels. It's levels of
that's
self-love.
even and T point spoke on this, like even with the exchange of energy sexually, people take that lightly. People take that lightly. I'm telling you, you deal with somebody that's dealing with multiple people, it will make you crazy. And you won't even know why. It ain't it ain't. It's them spirits.
Okay, it's not just it's not just
Well, that's because you messing around with a crazy girl.
No, that's because she carrying that energy around inside of herself. So and people say, well, it's condoms if they don't release. That's not true. Anytime you combine yourself, create a nexus is what's happening. And that energy,
condom or no condom.
and I'll tell you why it doesn't stay with men. This is biological, all bullshit aside. I don't know why I know this type of little. Okay. That's because men release and women receive. So it's so much easier for you all to feel something and let it go.
Because they're freeing themselves. We get the deposit of what you freeing yourself from.
She's running around with all this energy inside her body. If she's dealing with some, or back to back. It doesn't even, I'm not saying that she's promiscuous and she's dealing with a bunch of people at one time. I'm not saying that. But back to back, if she hasn't released that energy, she keep wondering, she's changing. Oh, this is a good one. She's changing, but she can't figure out why she keep attracting the same thing from people, not just men.
That's some inner work that she's still holding on to. She attracting who she is or who she hasn't healed yet. That same inner
carrying that around with you. You got to let that chance. I think a self-love journey is a quiet to yourself. Take your ass in the house for 3 months, sit down, be quiet, and get there. Like, I don't think you can do it in public.
You summed it up with the word intimacy. You have to have an intimate encounter with yourself in every way.
Don't be smiling. Oh, I thought I saw you smiling. So I was gonna say, we ain't talking about that kind of intimate encounter.
Oh, but that's a part of it.
You all know I'm the hostess with the mostest. I always gotta, keep the conversation funny and keep it moving forward. Yes. That's what's up. So I loved your takeaway. You got a takeaway for us, Tasha, for the we got to come up for self-love. What's our takeaway with how self-love affects our relationships, and how maybe this takeaway is, how do you all think we avoid? How do we inside get to the point where we have we have healthy relationships because of our relationship with ourselves?
I think what you feel inwardly, it manifests outwardly. And then, that whole law of attraction, you attract what you are. So I think, once you have a true intimate encounter, I like that, a true intimate encounter with yourself, you'll attract what you need. You'll attract what's meant for your life. If you broken, you gonna attract brokenness, even if you don't even feel like it. Sometimes we live in denial. You know, we tell ourselves, as much as we tell ourselves things to build us up, we tell ourselves things to survive within our trauma, because we haven't dealt with that, but we still got to survive. So we'll tell ourselves we're okay, you know, when we're not okay, you know, and then you like getting to the point, why am I attracting these people? It's a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow when you be like, dang, why am I attracting these people and everything? This ain't me. It might be you.
Might
You
be
know what I'm
you.
saying? It might be
It must
you.
be you. Yep.
So,
That's why I think that self-love has a lot to do with self-reflection. And a lot of times we talk about self-love, and it's just like,
weird.
girl, love your skin, love it, yeah, love your bullshit, listen, own all yours. Own it.
You
Own it. And I'm not even saying change it.
Yeah.
But know it. Know what's true about yourself. You better know what's true about yourself.
So can't nobody else tell you who you are.
You know, like, God, like, I believe what you do to her. That's somebody who knows, you know what I mean, who knows you will love, like, no. Yeah, I think self-reflection always. I don't think there's, except for when we were children and we didn't have a choice. I think once you become an adult, you have a choice of where you place yourself. Absolutely. You have an option, and it's hard work.
And I think, to be fair, we do this. I think adulthood is multiple levels of maturity. So we reach that pinnacle at different times in our life. You know what I mean? It ain't just when we hit 18, 21, 30, you know, sometimes it's 41. You know,
50.
But I was just going to say, when you said self-reflection, I was thinking about that lyric, India Ari, The Truth, that her song, she said, if I am a reflection of him, then I must be fly. You know, like right. What's inward is always going to manifest outwardly. You can't hide from yourself. It comes out eventually. You got to deal with you at some point in life.
Plus, there is nobody. Think about this. This is how amazing the Creator is. There is nobody else in this whole wide world like you. In the whole wide world. Guess who probably better at being you? Shit. And eventually you just get ornery about it anyway. Like, don't be ornery. Don't be ornery, but ain't nobody. I mean, if nothing else like that, those are the affirmations, you know, write some of these affirmations down that we giving y'all. There is nobody else in the whole wide world like me. Somebody thought I was special as hell to create one. Me. And what happens with something that you only have one of? If you got a whole bunch of something, right? You might be a little lackadaisical about a whole bunch of something. What happens when it's lackadaisical?
Okay. You said lackadaisical. Okay.
No, I did not. I did not. What happens when it's only one of something? When it's only one of something, it's considered to be precious.
Priceless. Yeah.
Peculiar.
So Tiara, you are priceless.
Thank you.
So you are priceless.
Yes, Natasha, you are priceless.
Don, you are for sure priceless, girl.
I love y'all. I love y'all. And everybody who came out to say hello, Miss Maya and Corey and Cora and Zinga. Lots of people drive by. So scroll down, make sure I didn't miss anybody.
T. Nicole Taylor, Victoria, Marisha, Mo Poetry, Debbie. Let's see. Yeah, that's all I got so far.
Yeah. Everybody who joined us tonight, thank you guys so much. I think we actually recorded this time, so we will actually also have this on our YouTube.
It's
I
there.
appreciate y'all being patient with Back to Love. You know, we chugging along slowly, but we are chugging along. And thank you to my panel hosts, my co-host this evening, Miss Tierra, Mr. Soul, and Miss Natasha. I think it's another good one in the books, y'all. It's another good one in the books. Thank you, Facebook world, for hanging out with us. We appreciate every time you come and spend time with us. We break bread and we show love. We are Back to Love. We love y'all.
Is that how they do it?
Love.